Good morning, students. Let us begin with Standard 5 English, Unit 3, Part 1. The name of your lesson is Robinson Crusoe Discovers a Footprint. This lesson is written by Daniel Defoe. He was an English writer and he is the most famous for this novel called Robinson Crusoe. So let us see for what he has to tell in this novel, and this is just a small part of his novel, and he had become very famous for it. So let us see what the story is about. Robinson Crusoe's ship had been destroyed by the sea. He had been alone for many years and longed for company. One day, he discovers a footprint on the sand. Let's find out what he did then. So, this means that this Robinson Crusoe, he was a sailor and he was on a ship. And his ship was destroyed by the sea, means there might be some strong winds by which the ship might have sank. And all his other fellows might have died. And he managed to be alive and escape, and he was on an island for many years, and he was alone on that island, and he longed for some company because he was the only person who was saved from the drowning of the ship. So now one day suddenly, when he is on the sand near the sea, he sees a footprint, and then he tries to find out whose footprint it is. So now let us read and see whose and what it is about. One day, when I was going towards my boat, I was surprised to see the footprint of a man on the sand. I stood amazed. I listened. I looked around me. I could neither hear nor see anything. Now, what is he saying? That he was alone on that island for many years. So, once he was just going towards his boat near the sea, and he was surprised to see a footprint of a man on the sand near the sea. So, he stood and he looked at it, and he was just trying to imagine that how did it come there. He tried to listen, he waited there, he looked around, and he could not see or hear anyone around him. I went up higher to look down. I went up the shore and down the shore, but it was no good. I could find no other footprint but that one. He was alone on the island, and he was really surprised to see a footprint after many years. So he went up a cliff, he looked from up, he looked down, he looked everywhere in each and every part of the shore, but he could not find any other footprint, only one footprint he could find on the sand. I went to it again to see if there were any more footprints and to tell if it had been my imagination. So now again, after investigating and checking everywhere, he went back to that footprint to see if there were any more around that footprint. But there was only one footprint, and he thought that he was just imagining, and he saw only one footprint on the sand. But I was not mistaken, for there was exactly the print of a foot, toes, heel, every part of a foot. I could not imagine how it came there. He went to see that footprint again on the sand, and when he saw that it was exactly a footprint of another man. Exactly the toes and the heel and all that print could be seen properly on the sand. So he could not imagine that how it had come there because there was no one on the island. He was alone on the island since many years. I stayed a long time thinking, but became more and more confused. So he just waited there and he kept on looking at that print, and he was thinking and thinking that how this has happened after so many years because there was no one on the island. You can see Robinson's small boat as it is mentioned in the text. He must be using this boat for fishing and all, because he needed something to eat, so he had made a small boat for himself. At last I returned home very frightened, looking behind me after every 2 or 3 steps, mistaking every bush and tree to be a man. So now, after thinking over that whose footprint it is, after so many years since he was alone on that island, he got frightened and he thought of returning home. So he was very frightened, and as he was walking home, after each 1 or 2 steps, he was looking at the back. Why? Because he had got frightened that after suddenly so many years when there was no one on the island, whose footprint is there on the sand. So, as the trees and the bushes were swaying in the wind, he was getting more frightened. He was thinking that there is a man hiding behind these trees and bushes. When I came to my cave, which I called my castle, I ran inside it as if I was being chased. I do not remember whether I used the ladder or went in by the hole. Now, as he was returning home, he had become so frightened. He was actually living in a cave, which he called his own castle, like a palace. It was a cave. So he just ran into his cave, his castle, and he does not even remember that as he climbed the ladders or whether he went in through a hole, because he was so frightened and he ran in such a way that he thought that as if someone is running behind him to catch him. In the rock which I called the door, I ran for cover faster than any animal could run. Now he was just saying that he ran into his castle. He does not even remember whether there were ladders or whether there was a door. He was just running in such a way that as if there was someone behind him to catch him, and he ran more faster than any animal. I did not sleep that night. The more I thought about what I had seen, the more afraid I became. I thought it could be one of the savages of the mainland who had wandered out to the sea in a small boat. Now, that night, Robinson did not get sleep. He was just thinking about the footprint, and more he was thinking, the more he was getting frightened, because it was after so many years he had seen it on the sand. Then he started thinking that it must be some of the savages, means some of the persons who has come there, the primitive people, the we say na as Adivasis. So must be those savages of another land who has just come to see the sea at that side in their small boat, and they might have landed there and they've gone back. Luckily, I was not on shore at that time. But what if he had seen my boat? If he had seen the boat, he would have realized that someone lived on the island and would soon return with others to kill and eat me. So now he's talking to himself and he's saying that it was good that I was not on the shore at that time when that savages might have come to the sea, because if he would have been there and they would have seen his boat, they would have understood that there is someone living on this island, and they would all come and try to come and kill him and eat him, because those primitive people, as they live in the jungles, they hunt and eat, animals and all sort of things. So he was more scared that it is good that I was not there and they did not see my boat. And so I lay fearful for many days and prayed for protection. In doing so, I was much comforted and began going out to investigate. But even now, as I went forward, I looked behind me frequently because I was still very frightened. For many days, Robinson was scared and frightened, and he was praying to God to protect him because he thought that if the savages know that he is here, he would be killed by them. So as he was praying, he used to feel little comforted, and after few days he left his home again to investigate that whose footprint he had seen. But still he had a little fear in him. So as he went on walking, he used to keep on checking behind him that is there anyone following him or is there anyone behind him, because he still had a little fear in him. However, as I went about for 2 or 3 days and saw nothing, I became a little bolder. I decided to go down to the shore again and examine the footprint once more. I decided to measure it with my own foot mark. So for 2 or 3 days he kept on investigating, and he found nothing. Then he had become a little more bolder, means he became a little less worried about that what it was. So then one day again he decided that I will go to the shore and I will examine the footprint again with his own footprint. He thought that I will go and see whether it is my footprint. So now he has decided to go to the shore and measure it with his own foot mark. As I came closer to the footprint, I realized that it could not be my footprint because I had not come to this part of the beach since a long time. So again he came to the shore near that sand where he had seen the footprint, and when he saw the footprint, he realized that this cannot be his footprint because he had never come to that part of the beach where the print was since a very long time. Secondly, as I placed my foot alongside that footprint, it seemed larger than mine. Now again he thought that it cannot be his because that footprint was little more larger and bigger in size than his own footprint. My fear returned. I went home again, believing that there was someone there. So once again, when he felt that it is not his own footprint, he again got frightened. Again that fear which he had returned in him, and again he went running home, thinking and believing that there is someone else also on that island. The island was inhabited, means that on that island there were some other people also. So he got more frightened that after so many years, suddenly again who has come on this island. So your homework, children, is to read this lesson 1 or 2 times, and I hope you have understood the story. So thank you.